PayPal and Block are two of the companies that are best positioned for this upcoming sweep of new finance companies that will revolutionize the financial sector. So today I'm gonna tell you everything about that upcoming revolution, and we're also gonna look into our outlook for both PayPal and Block. Stay tuned, we're jumping right in. Hello and welcome to another video by HKCM Global. My name is Joe, and over half a year has passed since the last time I did a video here on this channel about PayPal and Block and how these two are perfectly tracking each other in their performance. And a lot has happened since. Both companies perfectly followed our primary expectations for the price development in said stock, and we're going to talk about it in just a second. But first, let me deliver on that promise that I just gave you before the intro. I just told you that there's a huge revolution in the financial industry and payment sector coming up. And what we are talking about is stablecoins. Yes, of course, you know stablecoins. Stablecoins are not a thing of the last couple of weeks or months. Stablecoins have been around for years. However, in recent times, there's two major things that have happened. First of all, the stablecoin overall supply has been rising steadily. And secondly, we finally got regulatory clearance and regulatory certainty on how companies are allowed to interact with those stablecoins and what they can do and cannot do with those stablecoins. And so up until this point, where we didn't have any legislative ground to stand on, of course, companies have been super hesitant to implement these technologies in their payment networks. But the Trump administration over the last couple of months has been pushing hard to bring regulation into that crypto sector. And I'm gonna show you here, also brought here a chart for you about the overall market cap in stablecoins. And what you can see here is maybe to you as surprising as it was to me. So when we look at this chart here, we can see that back in April of 2020, we had a total market cap in stablecoins of only 7 billion. That is so small. I really was quite convinced that stablecoins have been a much bigger thing for much longer. However, then we had this huge crypto bull run, and of course with the bear market a collapse in overall market cap. But as you can see, the collapse here, or the retracement shall I say, in market cap is far from any other altcoins or even Bitcoin out there, right? So whilst Bitcoin corrected 70-80% and altcoins 90% plus, we only dipped here, I don't know, maybe by 30% or something like that. So nothing major at all. But ever since the mid of 2023, we have again been rising steadily. So back in mid of 2023, we have been at around $120 billion of total market cap in all these stablecoins. And currently we are already sitting at $265 billion of market cap. Now, why is that something that should even concern you? So obviously, if we're talking about the trading, then a stablecoin is a stablecoin. It is perfectly pegged to the US dollar. So there's no gains to be made in trading a stablecoin. No-brainer. However, where stablecoins become super useful and interesting to you as an investor is in the whole world of transaction settlements and payment providers. Because traditional payment providers such as banks, obviously, but also MasterCard, Visa, and PayPal, of course, those are profitable companies. However, compared to a stablecoin network, they have huge costs associated with the payment processes that they are currently using to process these payments that they're doing. So for example, PayPal, right? They already do only digital payments. However, still, they charge about 2 to 2.5% to every average online shop or merchant out there. But still, they are just barely profitable. It's not like they get filthy rich off of their 2.5%, which is quite a lot. There's many products out there where the profit margin is only 10% maybe-ish. And so if you have 2.5% ready going just to the payment network, that's a quarter of all your profits. So if a payment provider, like for example PayPal, can successfully implement a stablecoin network as the basis of their transactional network, they could instantly lower their cost factor by like 90% or something. They can lower their prices and still make a better profit margin. So that's why this technology of stablecoins has super disruptive potential to the whole financial transaction industry. So now we will look at our chart outlook to both PayPal and Block as just promised. And PayPal just today has had their quarterly earnings, and they were again quite good, better than the forecast, but still, again, PayPal crashed. And I want to show you something super interesting here. So what I would like to show you here, you see this resistance at $78.86, and this resistance has not just been put here yesterday or today, whilst PayPal was rejected as exactly this resistance. But as we go over here to our dashboard, and by the way, we just have a new feature in our dashboard. So for every single analysis package where we have plenty of, right, you already know this. So for every single of those packages, we now have both an analysis calendar and also an earnings calendar. And so if we go here and search for an older PayPal analysis, so for example, let's go to the end of May. Why not? You can see here that even back in May, we have had this exact resistance at $78.86 put in place with the exact same alternative scenario at 45% probability, but the clear primary scenario that we would still go lower in this overreaching wave 2 to still unfold, which will take us below $50. And what has happened since? As you can see here, as of today, we did climb, we did yet not reach this area here below $50, which still is our primary expectation. But this resistance here, which is a resistance for a reason, has been determined on a Fibonacci basis by our analysis team. And so PayPal picture perfectly was rejected at this resistance here, and quite a strong rejection indeed. So from this resistance, as of yesterday, we have been rejected so far around 11% down already. And this comes with good earnings, right? So if we take a look here at the earnings, we had an estimate of $8.08 billion. The reported revenue for this quarter was $8.29 billion, so a positive surprise by 2.5%. And even better here, the earnings, they were estimated at $1.29 and they were now reported at $1.40. So a surprise to the upside by 8% total, and still we were rejected by 11%. So in a world of pure macro analysis, right, we would have had to expect a rally here in PayPal. Yet we did not see that, but we saw the price action once again perfectly respect a resistance like this one here at 78.86, which we have had on the chart for months now. And so of course the question is, what can you expect from here onward? As just mentioned, our clear primary scenario is a continuation of that sell-off in a final leg down here to complete this overreaching wave 2. And what will happen afterwards? So after we finally conclude this overreaching wave 2 here, we will finally have a long-term bottom in PayPal. And so following this structure here of a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 waves upward structure to this overreaching wave 1, and now this completion of the overreaching wave 2, we can finally see a wave 3 upwards leg to unfold. And if we are to really drop here below these $50, let's start here at $45 maybe, we could see a potential next move at 1400 to potentially even 1800% in PayPal. Sounds pretty wild, I know, but remember two things. So first of all, we are really talking about a huge disruptive technology here in the payment sector. And secondly, remember, we have been already at $300 in the high. So 670 here at the lower boundary of our target zone, that's only roughly a doubling of a previous all-time high. So nothing that's out of this world at all. But the best thing even is, we also have to talk about Block. And Block, at least in my mind, looks much better even than PayPal. So, and for that, we firstly go back to our video from back in February this year. Back then, we were sitting at $84, and I told you that we have on the chart down here a target zone between $60-ish on the upper boundary and $44 on the lower boundary. And back then, the price action still was far ways off from this target zone. And what has happened since? Let's go to the block chart as of today. So back then, we have been in this area here. I told you the 11th of February, right? And ever since, the price action has picture perfectly followed our scenario. So we have come down in a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 waves upward structure, downward structure, obviously. And we have picture perfectly hit here almost to the dime, the lower boundary of our target zone at $44.27 here. And ever since, of course, the target zone has been grayed out, but ever since we have already seen 80% of gains here from the low, and from the upper limit of our target zone, we have already so far 34% of gain. So the worst case scenario, if you entered into this target zone on the very upper boundary, you would still already be 34% in the profit. And as you can see here, back in the past, I think our track record here with Block is really quite memorable, because in the recent past, we have done a lot of bottom calling, if you will, and every single time we have perfectly caught a bottom here. So for example, here, back here in November of 2023, from the low up until the peak, we have had over 100%. If you had just entered here at the very upper boundary, still 30%. So then another short-term target zone here up until the high, just from the upper boundary, 35% again. Here another one that was perfectly caught here in this target zone, and just from the upper boundary, 50% in the high. And so this recent one, as I just told you, already 34%, and from the lows even 80% by now. And a somewhat similar picture as with PayPal also presents itself here. So we have also a technical resistance here at $80.31. So again, quite similar to the technical resistance here in PayPal at 78, so only $1.50 off from the resistance in PayPal. However, the reaction at this resistance is a different one, because whilst PayPal was already violently rejected by the slightest touch of this resistance here, PayPal has touched this resistance and stayed pretty much on that resistance, and is now currently fighting that resistance and trying to overcome the resistance for good. And that is also our clear primary scenario. We do expect Block here in the next move to overcome this resistance and follow through here with this wave 3 extension, and only then come back with a wave 4 correction and follow through another wave 5. So up here in this next move, we would still see another almost 100% of gains before we expect the next major correction to come into the stock of Block. And so on a long-term basis, what would that look like? So on a long-term basis here, we again saw the overreaching wave 1 top here in a somewhat similar time frame as with PayPal, and ever since we have had an A, B, C correction. But the difference then is, whilst PayPal is still working on its overreaching wave 2 to be completed here in the hopefully near future, somewhat different story for Block. Block, we conclude that the wave 2 low is already in, meaning we are currently already in an upwards trajectory that will not, I repeat, that will not revisit those lows here at around $44. So in that regard, Block should be through with its correction, and it's pretty much off to the races from this point. And from current levels up until the lower boundary of our next imminent target zone, that's around 500% from current levels, and up until the upper boundary of a target zone here, that's around 850%. So the potential percentage-wise is somewhat lower as in PayPal. However, Block really gave us already confirmation that our wave count is correct, as you saw here with the most recent target zones, every single one a perfect hit, every single one a higher low. So we really have high confidence that Block will follow through with the wave count from here onwards as well. So I hope that again was a lot of free value for you. If you do not want to miss another video that we will be pumping out here on this channel, do not forget to turn on the bell notification after you subscribe. And if you would like to get daily updates on markets like this one and not just wait for free YouTube videos that be coming out every other day or so, then there's a link down there in the description taking you to a website where we analyze 200 assets, cryptocurrencies, commodities on a daily basis. And you can pick whatever market fits you and your investment horizon. So make use of that opportunity whilst we have right now a coupon code at 20% off on every single package that we have. And up until then, see you in the next one. Take care.